The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned into the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Tristan Warner, Mason Beckman, and Super Rob Waltko. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Pennsylvania wrestling fans, you are now dialed into the PA Power Wrestling Podcast, College Edition. I'm your co-host, Tristan Warner, joined today by Rob Waltko. We are bringing you episode 4 for the 2019 and 20 season. Hard to believe, but the first weekend of college wrestling is actually in the books now. We got some recaps to go over, some highlights from this weekend's action, as well as a preview for this upcoming weekend. Rob, good to have you back for episode 4.
Yeah, glad to be back. It was a fun weekend. Definitely got to watch some good wrestling and saw some good performances from Pennsylvania natives.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Obviously, we're kind of constrained here on time. We're probably just going to hit the main highlights of the PA boys, but from Pennsylvania schools and from Pennsylvania natives, there was a lot of guys out there on the mat scrapping this.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we jump into it too much, like we said a few episodes ago, it's tough to really know who's where. Intermat has Mikey Carr at 149. It looks like Duncan and Piotrowski bumped up, at least for the opening of the year. So they might be making a big bump. Who knows? And then DeSanto Teasdale, we don't know what's going on. We keep hearing things. They alluded to the fact that DeSanto is going to go 33. Brands mentioned him wrestling gross, and now DeSanto is wrestling off 141-pounder. There's no Murin. Tristan, can you make heads or tails of this situation?
No, I don't. Like I said when I was doing the preview, I said they might not even know, to be honest. It's one of those things where you got a bunch of talented guys in the lightweights. You got a couple weeks kind of to figure it out before the heart of the season kicks in. So they might just be kind of seeing what happens, rolling the dice a little bit, and then kind of decide from there. I don't know that they necessarily even have a true decision yet.
Yeah, it's kind of the feeling I get, but I guess we'll see. Jumping into the action, though, let's start with the Michigan State Open. I think that was the premier event of the weekend. You had Pennsylvania native Mickey Philippi taking out Piotrowski from Illinois and ended up winning the tournament in a pretty tough 133. Not a loaded weight, but a good win nonetheless. 41, nice win for Luke Pletcher over Dom Demas. Beat him in rideout, moved up to number 1 in the country by Flo and Intermat. And Sammy Sasso, he probably was the talk of the tournament, man. He went out and beat the crap out of everyone. Got bonus points, either a pin or tech fall, I believe, in every match. Smoked Nate Limix from Purdue and then beat the heck out of Storr, teching him in the finals. Those lightweights, Tristan, what did you see there that caught your eye?
Well, Mickey did what Mickey does. He won a couple close matches, but like we said, we talked about him in the preview. He's very hard to score on. He won some low-scoring matches. Good to see him get a title. And then 41, we just mentioned last week that we noticed Pletcher looks like he's making the move up, and I would say so far to be ranked number 1 in the nation after moving up a whole weight class in the first week of the season, looks like it was a good move so far. We'll see how that goes, but maybe 33 was just too hard of a cut for him. He definitely looked strong at 41, so good for him. One side note at 141 I wanted to bring up, Rob, is Cole Matthews, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago. He's a really highly touted kid that people are expecting big things from at 141. Actually wrestled in the freshman-sophomore division at the Michigan State Open. Do you have anything to make of that? Do you have any idea why they do that? Maybe just keep the confidence high rolling into the dual meet season?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, they're going to have a tough dual meet this week that we'll talk about a little later. He's going to wrestle Heil from Campbell. Maybe just want to get him on a roll. I think Pitt's doing a really good job, so I don't want to act like I know better than them or I'm calling them out. It was a little surprising to me. I'm not going to lie, but I'm sure they have their rationale.
Yeah, not necessarily a bad decision, just an interesting one. I would have liked to, as selfishly as a viewer standpoint, would have liked to see him get out there and scrap with, the likes of Luke Pletcher and Dom Demas just to see where he's at. But, going out there and getting 4 or 5 wins and winning a college tournament going into your first dual meet is also got to be a good feeling. So, you'd have to think he enters the Campbell dual meet on a pretty high note.
Yeah, no, he's got to be feeling good. So we'll see him tested this weekend for sure. Great action from the PA guys down there. Sasso, like I said, turned a lot of heads. His physicality was really through the roof, and I'm excited to see him continue to improve this year. Some of the big guys, you got Nino Bonacorsi. He pretty much walked through the tournament. He beat up Embry from Michigan, who he's beaten a few times now. Woodley made the finals. He lost to Colin Moore in overtime. He looked good, man. He looked a lot more physical. He looked a lot bigger than in the past. I mean, he was 19 years old all of last year, so I think he's starting to really mature. And I'm excited to see if that was a fluke. I don't think it was. I think he's ready to make a big jump. And then Gavin Hoffman really didn't compete very well. I think he only won – he might have gone 0-2. Regardless, he didn't make much of a run. I get this sense that maybe it's a weight issue for him, but I'm not really sure. It's going to be interesting to see if they throw him out versus Stanford this week. Tristan, did you catch much of the big guy action? Did Woodley catch your eye? Because he sure caught mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a big-time recruit. He's a really tough kid. He's obviously a couple years younger than Moore, too, so to take him into overtime when Moore's now, like a fifth-year senior and Woodley's just a sophomore, that's impressive stuff. And like you said, he was right there in the match. I don't think that was any kind of a fluke either. So I do think Woodley's going to make a big jump this year. I think I might have alluded to that even during the preview. And then at 184, Nino introduction, as you might coin him here, for Pitt, making big strides again. He was in the blood round last year as a freshman, ranked as high as fourth, I think, now. So yeah, he that was not necessarily a slouch weight either. There were some tough guys in that bracket. Kind of breezed through it. So good for him. And then Gavin Hoffman, like you said, I don't know if it is a weight issue or what, but like we talked about last week, we saw him actually lose in his inter-squad match to an Ohio kid who doesn't have very big high school credentials, somebody that Hoffman would have probably beat up on in high school. So yeah, I don't know if he's sick or hurt or what's going on, but kind of in a logjam in that Ohio State lineup. If 84 is too much of a cut for him indeed, then he's kind of out of luck for the year, as Colin Moore is the top ranked guy at 97, so he can't really go up. Could be problematic.
Yeah, it's a storyline to watch. I mean, he might be caught between a rock and a hard place. We'll have to see, if he stabilizes. Maybe it's an injury. Who really knows? We're just speculating on the weight, but we'll see where he's at in March, because the kid, he wrestled really well last year. I expect he's still going to have a pretty solid year. What do you say we jump into the Clarion Open?
Yeah, let's jump into the Clarion Open. So, let's start at 125. First of all, Gramacki from Clarion did not compete. That's interesting because, he got that. He was out all last year with an injury, coming back this year. He's either a fifth or a sixth year senior now, I think, Rob. Didn't see him, but he's a nationally ranked guy at 25. We're looking forward to getting him back in there and seeing if he can pick up where he left off as a national qualifier a few years ago. Interesting result. Willie Gerard from Bloom. I think he may have been the only returning national qualifier in that bracket. Actually took fourth, lost a couple of surprising matches there at 125. So some new blood in there. Ended up placing higher than him. Maybe one of the most marquee matches of the whole tournament came at 149, and it actually had a high school kid in it, Rob. Ed Scott, the Du Bois High School phenom who won a PA State title last year, really had to have turned some heads in that place. He beat Brockport from Lock Haven 14-0, I think it was. Almost tech fouled him in either the quarters or the semis, and then came into the finals against Brock Zacherl from Clarion, who's a sixth-year senior who's ranked in the top 5, and had a lead at some point in the match and only lost 8-7 by the very end of the match, or 7-6. So did you see that coming? I didn't even know he was in the tournament at first, and then when I saw that result, I just couldn't believe to see that was the final score of that match.
Him competing with Brock definitely surprised me, but Brock showed a lot of composure bouncing back. I do want to touch on 125 though before we move ahead. Definitely disappointing that Gramacki didn't compete, but I'm sure he'll be back soon. Gerard really surprised me. That's a guy that he's redshirting, but I was really, really high on coming into the year. I thought he would probably just walk through that bracket, but maybe just shaking the cobwebs off in his redshirt year.
Yeah, and then moving up to 197 in the big boys, Greg Bulzak from Clarion with a big win here to, pick up that knight helmet in front of the home crowd. Beat Mike Beard, the Penn State. It remains to be seen if he's going to be in the lineup this year at all or not, but a huge blue chip recruit for Penn State a few years ago, and Bulzak got on top and turned him late in the match and ended up getting the win. That one looks kind of like Beard gas at the end. Would you say so, Rob?
Yeah, he looked really good the first period. I think he got 2 takedowns, maybe 3. I don't know if he just fell apart as much as Bulzak made him work. Like, they got in some funky positions where Bulzak was looking for reversals, and really making Beard work through every position. So, I mean, credit to Balzac for working his way through that match.
Yeah, that's probably about most of what to talk about here for the Clarion Open, at least for what we have time for. We'll move on. In dual meet action, Edinburgh, I think they definitely impressed. They probably did better than most people would have thought. Beat up on Kent State over the weekend. Couple nice wins. Ty Varndale for Edinburgh got a win over a national qualifier, and Tim Rooney. Rooney's been around for years. He's got to be a senior by now. Probably one of the most exciting wins for Edinburgh was at 174 in a battle of NCAA qualifiers. Jacob Oliver, the Huntington product, actually got a pin over Andrew McNally from Kent State in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So big win for him. And then at 197, McCracken, who's a Waynesburg grad for Kent State, beat Dylan Reynolds from Edinburgh, who I think we talked about was ranked 23rd in the nation by Flow going into this season. So that was probably an upset by most people's count.
Yeah, good work by the Fighting Scots. I know that I watched an interview with Matt Hill. He didn't act too impressed. He's a humble guy, but got to think they're pretty pumped up for where they're looking or how they look right now. Keeping up with Edinburgh, they're wrestling Wisconsin this weekend at Sagertown High School. Sagertown is to Edinburgh what Brookville is to Clarion, with guys coming in that wrestle at that high school and then make their way over to Edinburgh. Tristan, I know you had done that, or you'd gone to the event last year. Where was it, at Redland or Red Lion? What are your thoughts on these high school events? Because they seem to do well. They sold out at Sagertown, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I went to the Arizona State Lock Haven match that was at Red Lion High School down here in the York area of District 3. It was awesome. They put together an amazing production. They had, the whole place was packed. It was a pretty good-sized high school gym, but the whole place was packed. They had all the lights down. They had a spotlight. They had a smoke machine, all kinds of stuff. It was honestly a better atmosphere than most college dual meets that I ever personally wrestled in or attended. It really, sometimes you just go out there with a kind of a barren gym with, all the lights are on and, it's not very loud or anything. When you wrestle in an event like that and you get fans that come out and see, this is what college wrestling is about, it was a great spectacle for the fans, I would say, and for the kids too. Just go out there, especially in a Pennsylvania. It's a hotbed of wrestling. You can get so many fans to come out and watch wrestling. Why not take advantage of that?
No, I think it's cool. We're starting to see teams really market the sport differently to the fans, which is much needed, right? If you're not doing that, you're basically dying. So credit to Edinburgh for thinking outside the box. The dual meet itself, I think 74, 84, 97 could be quite competitive. I watched Wisconsin wrestle last week. They weren't that great up top, at least versus Army. So we'll see if Edinburgh can squeak a few wins out, because Wisconsin, they are a good team. They're trophy hunting, and I think that it's going to be a tough night for Edinburgh, but a really good night for the fans and a really good experience for the athletes. A duel I'm pumped up for, though, is Pitt Panthers taking on the Campbell Camels this week. Campbell has a really tough team, man. They should win the SoCon. I know App State's always tough, but Campbell looks really strong. There's some marquee matchups here. I'll go through a few and we'll kind of get through them. 33, you got two guys projected All-American, Noah Gonzer, Mickey Philippi. I call Noah Mickey Light. He's very tough on top. He doesn't score a ton. He doesn't turn maybe as much as Mickey, but he wins a lot of low-scoring matches, pulls out a lot of riding time. This is a big match for Mickey. This is a guy that I think he should go out and dominate, but Gonzer's going to be ready to go, and he's going to have a game plan intact. 41, we touched on this earlier. Number 16, Josh Heil, who was at 49 last year, is going to be coming in wrestling Cole Matthews. Heil was tough, man. He was really an All-American threat at 49. Didn't have the best national tournament, but was really solid all year. Great early season test for Cole Matthews. Tristan, what do you think about these first two weights?
I just want to say first to point out, if you would have said 5, maybe even 10 years ago that you're pumped up for the Pitt Campbell dual meet, I think people would have probably told you didn't know a whole lot about college wrestling. But boy, has Campbell come on really ever since Kerry Colat took the reins. And ironic that he's originally from the Pittsburgh area, so there's got to be maybe some added incentive there for him to coach his boys up here. But yeah, Campbell, they have some really tough kids in their lineup, and they've picked up quite a few transfers, especially from the MAC. You got Noah Gonzer at 133, who's was an Eastern Michigan kid before they dropped their program, and he's only gotten better as his career's gone on. So, he may not present a major challenge for Philippi, but you can probably bet that match is going to be pretty close just because, Philippi wrestles close matches, especially against nationally ranked kids. And 41, obviously just excited to see Cole Matthews in his first dual meet in a Pitt singlet. We talked to him a few weeks ago, and we asked him if there was any match that he was particularly pumped up for, and he really just said all of them. He's excited to get out there and scrap in a non-red shirt type atmosphere. And moving up to 149, Campbell has 18th ranked Mason Smith, who is a Central Michigan transfer, so also from the MAC. He's going to be taking on Luke Kemmerer from Pitt, we assume, who narrowly won his wrestle-off at 149. So this will be an interesting one for Kemmerer. He's also a redshirt freshman who hasn't been in the lineup yet for Pitt in dual meet action, and he's no slouch in his first match competition here against the 18th ranked kid. So that'll be a tough opening match for him to kind of see where he stands.
No, I think I know Smith transferred a few times. I think he can wrestle in this dual meet. I slated him in there just because he's their best guy, but I think that's going to be a tough match for Kemmerer. 65 is a good one, too. You got Perez versus Wenzel. Perez, he's got a high motor, man. He wrestles hard. He just pinned Kennedy Monday last week. But what I like about this guy is he's a two-time national qualifier, but he was 6-22 as a true freshman. I like that, man. A guy that came in really unheralded, didn't wrestle very well, and then keeps getting better. It's going to be a tough match for Wenzel. Perez is ranked 24th. And Wenzel 17th, or at least as of last week. But the really contrast the styles. Wenzel's strong, likes to slow the match down, and Perez is pretty wide open and scores a ton of points. So we'll see who can get to their game plan here. 84 is a good one. You got Andrew Morgan. He was 1-2 at the NCAAs last year, 25-10 on the year. He's bumping up from 74. I think Nino should beat this guy up. It's 23rd versus 4th. It's a guy that you'll wrestle at the national tournament, but I think Nino's on a different tier, especially after last week. And then, heavyweight might be the premier match of the tour or the day. Jerry Hino, former round of 12, versus Demetrius Thomas, who was the 9 seed last year. This is the number 7 versus number 14th ranked wrestler. Could come down to this match in the dual meet, and this match could come down to a round of 12 at the NCAAs to see who places. Two really explosive big guys. How do you see these big guys shaking it up, Tristan?
I like Perez too. It's funny that you said that. Before I even saw your notes here, I remember Perez a couple years ago he definitely had a losing record, and he wasn't really. He was kind of one of the gaps in their lineup, quite honestly, and he's really come on. He gets bonus points too, quite a bit. I've noticed. So he could catch you. He can score points for Campbell. But Wenzel is a guy that was injured last year, and he's coming back. So it's kind of a real test, I guess you would say, match for Pitt to see where a lot of these guys stand. They have a lot of guys that are talented kids from high school, but they're either a couple years removed or they were injured and they're coming back. So it's kind of a big question mark to see how these guys are ready to go. So it's an interesting first matchup for them. And then at 84, I think Nino takes care of business like we talked about. And heavyweight's a good matchup. Thomas is athletic. He's fun to watch. And Hino has been around for a couple years and he's gotten better every year too. So good matchups there to close it off. Could be a really interesting dual meet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really competitive. I could see either team winning. Pitt's favored, but Campbell could pull it off. And you never know in a dual meet. One guy's out sick. It could swing the whole thing. Tristan, I know you're Penn State Nittany Lions, team you're a fan of. They're wrestling Navy this weekend. What do you see in that duel? I
mean, obviously Penn State's on a different level, but Navy's a solid team that has kids that are always – if you're about to wrestle a kid for Army or Navy, you can almost always bet that they're going to be strong and they're going to be in really good shape. And I would even say, especially lately, these guys are pretty technical. I remember in college wrestling some Army and Navy kids and having them in my bracket and seeing them. And, they're strong, they're in good shape, and a lot of them have just really solid fundamental technique. You're not always going to see some flashiness, but they're just strong, hard-nosed kids that, they'll sprawl on you hard and squash you and spin around and, just do kind of sometimes basic moves, but they win a lot of matches. And probably their best shot to get a win in this dual meet would be at 49. Jared Prince, he was a super big recruit coming out of Florida a couple years ago. He's made the blood round before. It remains to be seen if he's going to be in the lineup, but him against Verclaren, at least on paper, you would think that Prince is going to be favored in that match.
Yeah, I think Prince has a win over him from a couple years ago. I don't know if he's in the lineup, but we'll see. I mean, I think it makes sense to at least mention him until we figure it out. 57, we'll see how that ends up, honestly. Brady Burgee took a really nasty spill at U23 Worlds. I would be absolutely shocked if he wrestled. He was out cold, clearly concussed or something with a head or spinal injury. I don't know who Penn State has at 57, to be honest, to replace him. Maybe Bo Pfeiffer. But regardless, I mean, I hope Burgee can come back. It didn't look very good. 97 could be interesting, I think. Roteman's pretty tough from Navy. He's good in all positions. And like we said before, we're not really sure about Kyle Cannell. I mean, he was really good for one weekend. He's in a good room with some really great guys right now, but it's interesting to see if he steps up to the plate, so to speak. Tristan, do you think Cannell's the real deal, or is the jury out for you? Because I'm really not sure.
I think he's the real deal. I mean, I don't know that he can come off 2 years of not wrestling and just pick up right where he left off. You might need some time to shake the rust off. But with that being said, I said this a few weeks ago, he's in a wrestling room right now with Shakur Rashid, Cale Sanderson, Jake Varner, now Kyle Snyder, Bo Nickel. I mean, you can't really – there's no way that I can say that I can count him out. So, I mean, I'm really excited to see him wrestle. I mean, I wrestled against him actually in dual meets, I believe, or maybe missed him by 1 year, but he was at Kent State when I was at ODU, and they were in our conference. So, I've been watching him wrestle for years. I always knew he was a big, strong, athletic, tough dude, but, his NCAA performance from 2 years ago was just something else. So we'll see if he can pick back up on that note. Anything else you want to say about the Penn State-Navy match? Every year also it seems like Navy, I will say about them too, they have somebody else emerge, it seems like. They got guys like, one who comes to mind right now is Nicholas Gill, 41-pounder a year or two ago. They have guys that, they've been around for a few years, but it just seems like 1 year it just really clicks for them, and they go from like a 500 guy to like a top 10 guy by the end of the year. So, that's Penn State, maybe not be the dual meet for them to prove that, but I would bet by the end of the year, Navy has a couple guys whose names you're not familiar with that are going to be in the national rankings.
No, man, you're absolutely right. We used to start our year at the Navy Classic in college, and it would be 30-man brackets with 22 guys from Navy. They have a huge team. Every kid's in shape. It's like that tournament's like the like they used to say about like Tbilisi, the international tournament where you'd have to beat like 6 Russians to win it. The Navy Classic was like tougher than Vegas because you have to beat 5 guys from Navy to win the tournament, and they're all in shape and huge and throw legs and ride really tough. But they're just tough dudes. They're built a little bit different there in West Point. So I think you're right. That's my long-winded way of saying that I agree with you. Journeyman Classic. This is a classic. Get some good PA action here. Arizona State has some PA guys. Bloomsburg will be there. Lehigh, Lock Haven. Nebraska has a couple Pennsylvania natives, as does Oklahoma. It'll be interesting to see how this one shakes out. 41. This is a stacked weight, man. You got Kyle Shoup. You might have Julian Claybove out there for Arizona State. Cedarian Perry, Chad Redd, Dom Demas. I mean, this thing is pretty wild. It'll be interesting to see where Shoup ends up, because I think the word's out on his style now. It's just a matter of if anyone can take it from him and stop him from doing it. 49 is a good weight. You got Josh Maruka, Pennsylvania native, out in Arizona State. He's going to take on Luke Karam, who got hurt last week. I don't know if he'll be in there. Jimmy Hoffman from Lehigh. They got Finley from Utah Valley State there. How do you see the PA guys shaking out here, Tristan?
Good. I think it's going to be interesting. First, I'll say about this Journeyman tournament is every year it really seems to confuse me. I know I wrestled in it my fifth year, senior year, and that was probably maybe the second or third year they ever had it. And it was, you just showed up, you wrestled a couple dual meets, and you left. And then every year since I followed it, it's either been some sort of dual pool tournament where you kind of advance or don't, and then it's also been an individual tournament where they put you in random brackets. Do you know, Rob, what is the format of it this year? Like, are we watching these guys wrestle dual meets, or are they going to be in tournaments?
I think it's the tournament, but I could be wrong, or it might be that the duels are Saturday and the tournament Sunday. I mean, we sound like a couple of idiots not knowing right now, but I looked, I didn't see a schedule, at least in my 2 minutes of searching, so I just figured we'd talk about the potential matchups. And I guess we'll fill everyone in on Monday next week, and once we figure out after the action's over.
In our defense, I mean, it seems like it changes every year, and even when it doesn't change, it's very confusing to me because I watch, I see these brackets, but you don't have all the guys from the same team. It's almost like they lump them like guys ranked are in this pool, and it's weird. They don't all wrestle each other. It's very strange.
Even then, they'll tier it. Like if you dual meet the day before, they'll put you in a different pool. Like you don't really know who's going to wrestle.
It's among the more bizarre competitions, but there's good matches there.
Yeah, it's kind of like Where's Waldo? You got to look for the matches, but there's always good action. I know that Arizona State, they're also going to duel versus Virginia, I think the day before. Josh Maruka is going to wrestle Sam Krivis in that dual meet. He's also going to wrestle Griffin Perriott that week. It's a big weekend for him. And then Josh Shields and Cam Coy, they're going to square off. A couple of PA natives, a couple of Westmoreland County boys, really. 65, at the Journeyman, Shields could end up seeing Isaiah White, who beat him last year at the NCAAs. That's a big rematch. It's a big seeding match as well. You get that Romero from Utah Valley State's in that weight as well. That dude's got a huge motor. He can push you hard. I don't see Shields gassing very often, but that guy is definitely a wild card. One I'm excited for, though, that could potentially go down is Labriola versus Cutler. Nebraska and Lehigh will both be there. They didn't wrestle last year, surprisingly, but just two powerhouse dudes, just absolute animals. That might be the match I'm looking forward to more than anything this weekend, man. How do you call that one?
Yeah, that's a really good matchup on paper. I don't know that it will see necessarily the fireworks that some of these other matches will, because I know Cutler and Labriola both are big, strong guys. I could see that being a really low-scoring battle. I think it would be a really good match. I don't even necessarily know who I'd put my money on, just because, Cutler's more of a veteran guy. Labriola's upside maybe is higher. Be a good match. I don't know, but I would see it being a low-scoring one, like a 4-3, 3-2 match. And then, like you said, Shields and Romero could be a good one. Shields and White, that would be a rematch of the fifth-place match at NCAAs last year, won by White. So, yeah, some really good potential matchups. Will we see them? We don't know, but some potentially good matchups there.
84, got a couple other ones. You got Corey Hazel, Chris Weiler. They're going to be the best PA guys in the mix in there with Zahid and Taylor Venz. Woodley and John Jacob Jingleheimer, Schmidt Jacobson from Lehigh, both in there at 97. Kyle Murphy from Bloomsburg will be up in there. Guy we talked about that had some big wins last year. See if he's for real. You have Orndorff from Utah Valley State, who Woodley beat last year, but maybe not the deepest weight there, but definitely some tough dudes. And then Tanner Hall versus Jordan Wood, our friend Jordan Wood, who was on last week. Hall's 2-0 versus him in college. I say Wood wins this match if they end up squaring up, but you never know. Hall is he's my age pretty much. He seems like he's been around forever.
I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, he's in between our ages. I guess.
He's like 28, I think. But that might be a. I keep throwing the best match of the weekend around. That might be a good one as well. I like Wood in that match, and not just because I'm from PA. Tristan, do you see Hall making the having the juice to beat Wood, or is Wood making that jump?
In my mind, I would say Wood's the clear number 3 guy in the country, at least for the rankings. Whether he can climb higher than that, and actually whether Gable Steveson gets reinstated, so to speak, he's been suspended, remains to be seen. But I think Wood's the number 3 guy right now. I see him winning that match. Hall, like you said, I think he was in my grade in high school, which was 2010, so he's got to be 27, 28 years old now. More power to him for still wrestling, but Wood, I think, is a good he's a younger guy. He's got more, like you said, more juice, more gas in the tank right now. I don't know. I see Wood winning that match.
We got Drexel has a couple dual meets this week. They're wrestling Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, and West Liberty. No real big matchups of note there. Stanford versus Ohio State. A couple of the PA boys have some big matches. You got Pletcher taking on Real Woods. Woods is a stud, man. He was a scuffle runner-up last year. He's ranked 18th, but he's way better than that. Pletcher off that huge win versus Demas last week. We'll see if he can keep the momentum going. And then Sasso wrestles Require Vandermeer from Stanford. Vandermeer was 1-2 at the NCAAs last year. He's a Pac-12 champ. He's beaten a couple NCAA qualifiers, but ultimately I think Sasso's on a different level from this guy. Do you see either PA guy struggling here? Gut feeling, man, I think this Woods is going to make it really tough for Pletcher, but I don't know if I'm just being pessimistic on that.
No, I think you're right. I think Real Woods is for real, for lack of a better term. He's ranked 18th or whatever he is, but I think he's almost a guaranteed top 10 guy already. I think it's just a matter of time before he accumulates a couple of those wins in a non-redshirt scenario where he can elevate his ranking. But I think that will be a really good match. And Pletcher is kind of like Philippi, who we talked about, where a lot of his matches are close. Even if he's, more dominant than the other guy, his matches are going to be close. And anytime you wrestle close matches, there's always that, that small chance of, an upset. So I don't necessarily see Pletcher losing that, but I think Woods is going to test him for sure. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think is Requier Vandermeer, he's coming down a weight from 57, I think. I want to say he wrestled 57 last year at NCAAs.
Maybe the year before. I'm pretty sure he was at 49 last year because he beat Maruka, I believe, at the Pac-12.
Okay, you might be right. I was going to say he might be a big 49-pounder, but no matter what weight class, I think Sasso has proven that he's probably even better than we hyped him up coming into the season.
Yeah, I think this is a guy that he should chew up, but we'll see. The dude's not a slouch, and then we'll see what happens with Hoffman if he's in the lineup this week as well. So yeah, what do you think, man? Should we give Brock Zacherl a call and get him on the horn?
Yeah, I'm excited to have Brock on here. Let's dial him up.
So now we're joined by Clarion 149-pound stud Brock Zacherl. Brock is in his 6th year at Clarion due to a red shirt and a medical red shirt. Is currently ranked top 4 or 5 in the country by just about every publication. Is coming off Clarion Open win. I think it's his 5th one. Brock, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. Thanks for having me. The pleasure's all mine.
How many times have you won the Clarion Open? Was I right that it's 5? I didn't do my research. I just remember reading it.
Yep, you're right. It was 5, and it's funny because I wrestled some freaking studs there, man. My only loss was to Mitchell Port, my true freshman year, and it was an awesome match for me. And then I wrestled, Ronnie Perry once in the finals, who's an NCAA finalist. I wrestled Sammy Krivas in the finals, who's always he's a PA guy who's ranked pretty high right now. And then I wrestled Nick Lee and Ed Scott, 2 guys that I expect to All-American and be NCAA finalists too. So I've had a pretty good run there at the Clarion Open, that's for sure.
Call that the early season Midlands, I guess.
Yeah, this year was a little down because a bunch of people a bunch of people have their Open early now, like Michigan State and South East Open or whatever that is, Princeton too, so they took some of our guys. But, man, in the past, there's been some hammers there.
So, Brock, jumping into it, you took a bit of a risk on Clarion, I'd say. At the time that you went there was a bunch of turmoil. They were losing guys left and right. They weren't winning a lot of matches. You were a huge recruit. You're a Pennsylvania State champ, in the finals of Fargo. What led you to Clarion? I mean, was it ever something that you second-guessed yourself, or was it always Clarion? Like, what brought you there?
It was Clarion, and I knew as soon as Keith Ferrero got the job at Clarion, I knew for 100% fact that I was going to Clarion, and I actually committed pretty early, considering in the process. I committed before my senior year even started, and just because the reason why I chose Clarion and was so confident is, I knew what I was getting into with Coach Ferrero. He's been my coach since I was 10 years old, since the day I stepped on a wrestling mat. And, Clarion is where I grew up. It's home, and it's a place I want to be a part of and a place I want to make better. And so, I can't do that if I go somewhere else. And I knew that this town has always believed in my goals and never doubted me for 1 second through all my failures. And I knew that if there was a place to make it happen, I wanted it to be at Clarion.
Brock, how has Clarion changed, I guess, from the school perspective, but more so from the wrestling perspective since you've got there?
Well, it's funny you ask that now because when I got there, basically since I got there, everything's changed. We have a new president. The coaching staff's totally different now. And it's night and day. We got a new AD. There's 2 of them there that they work their tails off, and they want to see everybody in the athletic department do well. And then our new president is she's outstanding. She doesn't sit in the office. She's always out inspecting. She comes to our practices. Sometimes she goes, not just ours, to all the sports practices, all of our little get-togethers as a team and functions. She's at every single one, our golf outing. And she gets her hands dirty. She wants to do whatever she can to make our athletics as successful as possible. And then, it's things like that make coach's job a lot easier. I say it all the time, how great, Coach Ferrero, Coach DeLoya, Coach Kraser, now that he's there, Coach Malik, these guys are all great. But when you have those powerful people in the ADs and the president backing them and supporting them, really great things start to happen. And that wasn't there whenever I first got to Clarion. So things are kind of spiraling in a really, really great direction. And I'm excited for the future of Clarion, that's for sure.
Brock, I wanted to jump back a little bit, back to your upbringing. You come from Brookville, a really tough AA school, kind of a blue-collar area up there. It also kind of reminds me of the way Clarion is for a college team. You guys got a lot of just like tough, hard-nosed dudes up there. How would you say your upbringing at Brookville and like your workout partners and your coaching staff, how did they set you up to have a successful career in college?
They always kept things in perspective. And the one thing, we do have that tough grit mentality. They beat that in your head at Brookville. But the one thing that really gets overlooked from my time at Brookville is, everyone went to these clubs and all over the country, to these camps and trying to learn technique and, all these fancy things. I never did that. I just stayed at Brookville. Coach Klepfer, he's the best in the business, man. He is a technical wizard, and he taught me everything I know about wrestling, and that is more than anyone that I've been around. He is the best coach there is, and he just beat the fundamentals into your head. And then the thing that Brookville did better than anyone I've ever seen is they, Coach DeLoya, Coach Ferrero, and Coach Klepfer, they adapted to everyone's particular style, and I don't see that much from coaches. And then, it's not that far. It's very hard to do. And that's the thing. Even looking further into the future, they prepared me to be a better coach, because I see how important it is to realize, an ankle pick's not my thing, but some people it's lights out. P.L. Sanderson's ankle pick was the best in the business, and he gave it to David Taylor, but no, that's not for everybody. And, that's what Brookville really did for me. They made me understand that I have a specific wrestling style. And then for the rest of my life, every time I went somewhere, I was looking for things that fit into my mold, not just random techniques.
Brock, fast forwarding, back to college, last year you bumped up to 149. You had a pretty strong start to the year. You were wrestling well in Vegas, and then got pretty dinged up and had to wait to get your medical red shirt to know if you'd be coming back this year. Can you walk us through that process? How stressful it was, and maybe how you felt when you found out that you did get that 6th year?
Yeah, it's funny because I got hurt, and I knew I was hurt pretty bad. But then when we got back from Vegas, I really thought I was fine. So I started lifting. I was doing like hang cleans and stuff like that because I didn't have any pain at all. And then we got an MRI just to be safe, and the pit match was coming up, and I was telling everybody that I was going to be good for pit. I was at a Brookville duel. And then, the MRI results came back, and my elbow was totally smoked. And, so I was completely shocked. And at that point, I didn't totally understand the rules. I thought it was just 33% of your matches, not dates. And so, when they first told me, I was crushed because I had 18 matches at that point. And so I thought, there's no chance I'm getting a 6 year. So, the tears started rolling down my face, and I was just crushed. And then, they quickly explained to me, that they thought I was going to be okay, but we didn't truly know that I was good to go until, when was it? It was, I want to say sometime in June, maybe. It was pretty late into the summer. And, when I found out, I was fishing with my girlfriend, and, I had to sit down. My heart was beating out of control. And, it was about the, I was crying then too, it's about the happiest I've ever been in my life. And, I just, every chance I get, I want to say thanks to the ADs. They worked their butt off, and I was a pain in a lot of people's butts, them and the athletic trainers. So, if they end up watching this, I really want to say thank you again for everything that they did for me.
Brock, how did you stay motivated all spring, not knowing if you'd get that year?
So I took on a coaching role, and that was a good way. I forget where I saw it, but there's a saying that goes if you want to get better at something, start helping people out. And, that really works. I feel like my technique is best when I come off the summer of working wrestling camps. And so that's what I did. I found my motivation through the other guys and coaching them and helping them get to the next level. And through that, I was able to kind of see a lot of things that I never had really seen before. Most of that, what I'm talking about, comes from the mental side of the sport. And, at this level, everyone's great. Even the guys that aren't ranked, they're capable of beating the best guys. Everyone's talented. Everyone knows the same technique. But what really separates everyone from the rest of the pack is the mental side of the sport. And so having a whole season to kind of work and develop that and beat my mind up and train that was a really powerful thing for me.
Brock, you touched on the mental side of the sport. So 2 years ago, you were in the blood round. You lost in the quarters and then dropped down, and you were just one win shy of an All-American performance. Now you got that sixth year back. Would you say it's a mental thing to get over that hump and get on the podium here in your last year, or what would you say is the secret for you this year to get it done?
Yep, it's 100% mental, and it's always been that way. And that just because I have always been capable, not just to be an All-American, to be an NCAA champion. I am totally confident in that. It's just I've really struggled with the mental side of the sport, and even this weekend, I would say I'm not happy with my performance. I didn't open up the way I wanted to, and that's got to change. And what's nice about it is I'm not shy about it. I know that that's the missing link, and I'm not afraid to tell people, and it's something that I'm working on. And actually, when I got home, I sent a couple of messages out. I told Coach how I felt, and Coach Ferrero told me something that really hit home. He said, you have the rest of your life to be born in generic. Take risks and be something amazing right now. And then, two other people that really helped me out just this past Monday was Troy Letters. I messaged him. He's an NCAA champion back in the day, and he told me just nothing else matters besides one thing, and it's just scoring the next point. So no matter how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, just cut all that stuff out and worry about scoring the next point. And then the next big help was one of my good friends, Vincenzo Joseph. He obviously everyone knows Chens. He wrestles for Penn State. He's an NCAA champion. And I remember it was before his first title. We sat down at the airport before we went to NCAAs, and we had breakfast together. He kind of was just talking about how he just wrestles so much better when he just relaxes and goes wide open. And I asked him, I was like, "What's the secret? How have you been able to do it so consistently for so long?" And he just told me he wants to go out there and beat everybody up, So he said he doesn't worry about if he gets scored on because he knows he's going to score more. So everyone he wrestles, he's going out there to beat them up. And so, those three guys really kind of helped me tie it all together. And then what Troy said to me really hit home because it's something I can train and work on every second of every day. When I start worrying about, a match coming up, or maybe I get nervous, or maybe I don't feel the best, none of that stuff matters. The only thing that matters is I'm scoring the next point. And I do that stuff in the room. I feel phenomenal in the room. It's just about translating it over to a live match. And, those guys it happened literally yesterday, but I feel totally ready to do it. And I'm excited to make that jump because I think it's going to be something really, really special.
Brock, is there a way that you can mentally train, or that you did mentally train this spring and summer? Or is it something that just clicked immediately? Like you heard something and it made you change your perspective, or did you have to work at it?
It's definitely something you have to work on, but I think the mistake I made a lot, especially recently, was I just overcomplicated it so much. I started reading some books, taking notes on those books, and then, it clearly didn't work out. I didn't have the weekend that I wanted to. I didn't open up. I was very cautious. And, so I asked those guys, for help, guys that I really respect, and, guys that have been there in that situation, and they made it all very simple and very clear. I really think Coach Letters explained it the best, where he said, the only thing that matters is scoring the next point. Because I like that because it's something you can always train. And then what Chenzo said just also reminds you too, you've got to bring a mentality and an intensity to the mat every time you compete. So I think you need to keep it simple, but those two things right there, what Coach Letters said and what Chenzo said with the intensity, that's something that is really simple and something you can train. So I think keeping it that simple is the best way to do it.
Brock, you talked about mentality with wrestling, and obviously that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, wrestling is just a sport. On another note, something a lot more serious in life here, you went through obviously a pretty trying time here. Back in 2016, your brother Brody I know it was all over the wrestling news, the GoFundMe pages and that kind of thing. He came down with a pretty serious condition, and I think he was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in a medically induced coma for a few weeks. But it seems like he made a full recovery, and he even came back and wrestled for you guys, I believe. So if you wouldn't mind, just take us a little bit through that journey you guys went through and how did that kind of change your perspective on things at all?
Yeah, it 100% did. And you just realize how much people take things for granted. Brody, we're twins, and he's been with me my entire life, and it's someone that, until that happened, I really did take it for granted. He's my best friend. We were always with each other 24/7. You don't realize how much someone like that means to you till something like that happens. And, I'm glad it did, because it's really inspired me to do a lot better in everything, to give back and to show people how much I do care about them. And it's something that I don't think gets done enough in our world. Anyways, so Brody, he had a strep throat, and it just show you how much I did take him for granted. He was complaining to me. We lived with each other at the time in Clarion, and he said he was real sick and asked me to go get him a ginger ale. And I was like, "Come on, Brody, how sick can you be?" And so he got in the car and went and bought his own ginger ale, came back and was laying in bed. And it wasn't 2 days later that he was rushed to Pittsburgh Hospital because that strep throat, it's called, what is it? It's very, very rare. It's like a 1 in a million disease. It's called Lemire disease, I believe.
Lemire syndrome? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Lemire syndrome. That's what it is. Yes, that's what it is. And so it's pretty fatal, and it's definitely, not everyone survives it. And so luckily for me, I would have been a nervous wreck knowing the whole time, but my mom kind of, she made it seem like it wasn't so bad. She just said that Brody was real sick, and I always asked her, I was like, well, he's going to be okay, right? She says, yeah, he's going to be fine. And so honestly, through the whole process, I really wasn't that worried. And then the one time I visited him, he was in a coma then, and it kind of hit me that this was pretty serious. And so, but she still explained to me, she said, no, he's going to be fine. He's not, it's nothing to worry about. And then the one time I came back for a second visit in Pittsburgh, and that's when my mom kind of told me what was really going on. And I got very sick. I puked in the cafeteria. got really sick. I was crushed, but so it was good at that point. I'm glad my mom did it this way, because at that point, they were kind of through the dark. So they knew Brody was doing really well. They knew where he was going to come through, and they were getting him out of the coma then. So, the trying time was over, and luckily my mom kept me in the dark through it. And so I was able to recoup fast, and, from then on, Brody kind of came through. He was a little groggy for a week or two after coming out through that coma. But then after that, it was, all smiles and fun, and Brody was back scrapping again in just a few weeks. And all he has now is some scars and no tonsils. He doesn't complain about anything. And that's something I really respect him for.
That's obviously a really tough story, but it's got an awesome ending. I'm glad you shared that with us. That really does kind of put things in perspective, especially when you think about wrestling and the mental game going into a wrestling match. At the end of the day, it's really just a game if you look at it that way. There's obviously so many more important things. Brock, my last question for you is, if you just want to give I usually open it up at the end to guys to kind of give a pitch for their program. Clarion heading in a good direction right now. Like you said, you guys got a couple new coaches. If there's any prospective recruits out there looking for a place to call home for the next few years, what would you say about the Clarion wrestling program to kind of, entice these tough young guys to want to become part of the team?
I'd say that Clarion is a place, we're just getting a brand new training facility. I posted some videos and stuff on Facebook and Instagram of we got to walk through, and it's going to be going in just a great direction. We're going to become a powerhouse. There's no doubt in my mind. First NCAA champ is going to start with me, and then we're going to keep knocking them down every year after that. And I really do think we're going to make a serious run and become, one of the powerhouse programs in the NCAA. This new facility has everything you ever need. We got a 3-mat training room for 3 full mats, and each mat has a TV with a delay on it, so even when you want to go in by yourself or with a partner, you can go, hit some moves and then wait 5 minutes, and then they'll be up on the screen, and you can kind of help coach yourself, or your coaches will be in there with you. And it's just going to be a place where you're going to have everything you need, and it's going to be a place where wrestling is one of the premier sports at Clarion. Everyone knows who the wrestlers are, and they're they love us. We have a really good reputation. We got a bunch of really great people on our team, and for the parents too, you want your son to become a better person, a stronger person. Clarion's going to be the place to be. It's just the whole town, not just wrestling, everybody in the sports faculty and on the campus as a whole is just, they're hardworking people, and it's something that's really contagious. So I would highly encourage, not just wrestlers, anyone to just come be a part of the Clarion family or come check it out, because it is something that is really, really special.
Kind of wish I had some more eligibility. I'd head up there myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I love that place, man. I'm never leaving.
Well, cool. Anything else, Brock? Man, that was a great sales pitch.
That was impressive.
Well, I'm trying to get my master's in business, so I learned a thing or two at business school, right?
We can write you a recommendation after that.
Yeah. No, that's it. Thank you guys for having me. Seriously, I do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, Brock.
We'll be rooting for you. Good luck. Go get that title.
Thank you. I will. No doubt about that.
All right, and that's about going to wrap it up for us here on the PA Power College Wrestling Podcast. As always, I'm Tristan Warner. Was joined today again by Rob Waltko. That was episode 4 of the 2019-2020 season. Thanks, everybody, for stopping in. Please go ahead and give us a like or a share on social media. Spread the word about the PA Power College Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back next week to recap all of this weekend's action and, of course, preview action for the weekend of. With that said, I'm Tristan Warner, joined by Rob Waltko. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.